The story begins with a streamer finally achieving the status of king and ascending to the throne of souls, with the system congratulating him for being the first king to sit on the throne of souls and informing him that the reward will be given once he meets the specific conditions. The protagonist was genuinely happy, celebrating with his friends and live stream followers for finally reaching that level, until suddenly a being appears and stabs him, saying that he is a mere insect and that his heresy will not go unpunished. Shortly after, the prota hears some people saying that there's an injured man there in his 20s and that he's bleeding a lot. He also hears that this person's heartbeat is weak and that he'll need a defibrillator. The prota hears the countdowns and feels the shock, but he can't wake up. The doctors try again, but nothing happens. Then, on the third attempt, he wakes up, startled, wondering what had happened, as he was in a strange place full of corpses. He tries to remember more, but the only thing that comes to mind is that he was stabbed by a mysterious person. He then wonders where he is, even considering that he might be in hell due to the piles of corpses, but quickly becomes upset, thinking he never blasphemed against God in his life, so he shouldn't be in hell. Soon, he feels a sharp headache, as if his head were going to explode, becoming even more puzzled by his inability to remember anything. Suddenly, something comes to his mind, and he's shocked to remember that his name was Bai Chi. He was 20 years old, and he used to be a game streamer before he died. He was never famous, but due to one of the last streams he had done, his follower count had increased. All this happened while he was playing an open-world RPG called Throne of Souls. The game was set in a medieval fantasy environment that was suddenly struck by the crash of an alien spaceship, blending classic fantasy elements with futuristic sci-fi works. Since the game's release, all players praised it for its extremely high-quality graphics and immersive storyline. However, after reaching a very advanced level in the game, many players started streaming their struggles in the more difficult stages. But that wasn't a problem for the prota, as being one of the best in the entire community, he began receiving more attention for his gameplay. However, the extreme difficulty made many people give up on the game and stop following the content. Suddenly, a system voice appears, telling the prote that even though he had died, he would still remain alive. More specifically, the system explains that he had reborn, then asks if the side effects of rebirth were starting to fade. The prota, startled, turns around and asks who said that, as the voice was very familiar. The system informs him that he was being analyzed from a higher perspective, and that each game created generates its own world. The prota, intrigued, wonders if the voice he's hearing is from the Game World platform assistant, only to hear the system again explaining that his death was the special condition needed to activate the reward key of rebirth, and that, therefore, he has now been reborn in the world of Throne of Souls. He's confused by the idea of being reborn in the world of Throne of Souls, but then remembers the special reward he had received when he finally achieved the status of king and ascended to the Throne of Souls, wondering if the reward was this chance to be reborn, since he didn't even know exactly how he had died. However, he's pleased because this is a chance to return to life, but he quickly becomes frustrated, asking the system why it didn't place him in the world of bikini beauties from the game Memories of a Summer, and why he has to be reborn in that hell that is the world of Throne of Souls, saying it would have been better to have died for good, as that way he wouldn't suffer as much. The system explains to the prota that the key of rebirth is an exclusive reward for the world of Throne of Souls, as the other games, unfortunately, don't have a similar feature. Intrigued, Bai Chi asks what unfortunately means, as it seems that his system wasn't too happy about it. He believes that a game like Throne of Souls would never give such a valuable reward like a free rebirth to anyone, and wonders why they want something from him. The system responds that it's quite simple. They just need him to do what he does best, sit on the Throne of Souls again, and if he manages to repeat that feat, he will receive an even better reward, called the Key of Time Travel, which will allow him to travel to other worlds in Game World or even return to his original world. The Prota is surprised by this reward, asking why they didn't give it to him before. Bai Qi, intrigued, tells the system that although the reward is interesting, what his system is asking for is impossible, since the game doesn't even have an infinite rebirth mechanic. After all, in a world as complicated as Throne of Souls, even a dog on the road could end his life. The system responds that although there is indeed no infinite rebirth mechanic, he won't be defenseless. His account on the Game World platform has 100 platinum games from various genres, and he will be able to complete special missions and tasks to acquire the skills and items of the protagonists from those 100 games and use them in Throne of Souls. At that moment, Bai Qi is impressed, realizing he could accumulate various skills from the games he had platinumed, and he imagines that things are starting to get interesting. Looking at his Game World collection, he recalls that he has always been a fan of all kinds of games and never limited himself to streaming just the most popular ones at the time. That's why these games are from all sorts of genres imaginable, from bestsellers to indie productions, and even visual novels. He becomes excited, imagining that using the skills and items from these games in the world of Throne of Souls would be quite intriguing. The system explains that the Prote could also choose to live as a common human without any abilities, as the choice was entirely his, with no objections. After hearing this, he ponders, thinking that if he lived as a common human, he would avoid the dangers of fighting bosses. But on the other hand, he would be subject to other mortal risks, like hunger. He quickly discards that option, as it made no sense. He then considers that maybe the system is planning something, since they presented this option only to make him even more determined to follow the path of the king. Bai Qi smiles and tells his system to stop joking around, saying he had already spent 20 years of his past life living as a common human. So, it seems like a joke that he would pass up this opportunity to be reborn and choose to live the same way again. He asks the system if there's any time limit to complete the main story and become king. Quickly, the system responds that there would be no time limit at all, then asks the Prota if he truly wishes to follow the main route to become king once again. Without thinking twice, the Prota replies that of course he would accept, as he'd be crazy not to. With that said, the system wishes him good luck on his new journey of ascension in the game Throne of Souls. After returning from his game world, he's confused as he hears someone calling him, telling him to look up, only to realize that it was a girl tied up, hanging upside down. She says she thought he had died there and asks what he's doing back alive, and if, by any chance, he's a reborn. This girl is a mage elf named Glory, one of the princess's guards, and is at level 21. Along with her, there are 3 more people tied up. Glory quickly tells the Prota that it doesn't matter why he's alive, urging him to try and get them down before the monsters return, as they need to get out of there as soon as possible. Hoshi, who is also one of the princess's guards, with his class as a human warrior, gets angry with Glory, asking if she really thought that the cowardly Prote would try to save them, since he was just crying and calling for his mother during the attack. Hoshi becomes even more irritated, remembering that they had been betrayed, and if it weren't for that, they wouldn't be in the current situation. Dagu, completely calm, responds that nothing made sense at that moment, and points out that everyone there was going to be killed. Dagu is also part of the princess's guard, and his class is that of a beast hunter. Bai Qi, observing Princess Mina, becomes intrigued by the Star Kingdom, about her and her guards, as all those names were quite familiar to him, until the Prota remembers, becoming alarmed, that they were all NPCs he shouldn't encounter at the beginning of the game, and that the dungeon, ululating cave, wasn't part of the initial map either. He becomes even more frightened because just imagining it already gave him chills, and if he had chosen to be born as an ordinary human, he would already be dead at that moment. He was in the ululating cave dungeon, where the recommended level was between 20 and 30. The Prota, however, was a human without a class, being only level 1. Looking around, he says that it was expected that the system would do something of that level to him, as he couldn't understand what had happened. The sequence of territories was completely scrambled, He should have been reborn in the initial territory, Kafir Anka, for levels 1 to 10, then proceed to the Burnt Jungle, a territory for players of levels 10 to 20, and only then move on to the level 20 to 30 territory, Ululating Cave, to save Princess Mina and her group, who were hanging upside down, to gather enough strength to complete the dungeon. After imagining all of this, the Prota decides to change his mind, thinking that he should first choose a class quickly and find a way out of there. He then asks his system, which begins the class selection process. Quickly, the system informs him that the class selection process has started, asking the Prote to choose his class. The first option is the Warrior class, a melee combat class that uses a shield and a longsword, balancing defense and attack. The second option is the Mage class, a long-range class that uses staves and spells, balancing attack and support magic. The Assassin class is a melee and long-range combat class, able to use daggers and throwing knives, with high attack power and agility. There is also the Hunter class, a melee and long-range combat class that uses a one-handed staff or bow and arrows, capable of controlling elemental power to enhance attacks. And finally, the No class option, where a player without a class is despised by everyone. It has no additional skills or attributes, starting the game with cloth clothing and a basic staff. After observing all these classes, the Prota replies that there was no need to show them all, since he would choose the same class he picked when he played Throne of Souls for the first time, opting for no class. His system is baffled by the Prota's choice, saying that with so many useful class options, he chose the one with the worst skills and attributes. Bai Qi, confident in his choice, explains to the system that class choice in the game Throne of Souls is extremely important for the player's initial survival. However, in the next class advancements, secondary classes must be chosen that are related to the main class. The No class option is the one with the highest difficulty for survival in the game, but it's the only one that allows the player to find an NPC to increase attributes and perform class changes without restrictions. The Prota also clarifies that even though it's the hardest, it's also the most rewarding, and moreover, it comes with hidden resources. With this class, he will be able to complete the achievements of all classes without needing to restart the game to create characters for each of the other classes. He also emphasizes that it was precisely because of this that he became the first player to obtain all the achievements in the game Throne of Souls. The system says it understands, affirming that his speech was worthy of the best player they had. Therefore, the system informs the Prota that his main mission has been updated. His mission is to survive and reach the exit of the Wir-Ed, the Ululating Cave, and the mission reward will be account unlock points, 1 point. The system explains that these account unlock points serve to unlock 25% of the items in the current game account's warehouse or any other account with no level restrictions on use, or randomly unlock a new game account along with the corresponding 25% usage rights for items and abilities. Bai Qi returns to the game, imagining that he just needs to get out of that dungeon alive, and soon hears Princess Mina's group asking him to go to the rope tied in front of him and untie them so they can get out of there together. The Prota walks to the rock holding the ropes and becomes thoughtful, wondering whether or not he should untie them, as they had no idea what could happen if he released the ropes. Remembering that last time he had cut the ropes and everyone was happy, wanting to wake the princess to get out of there as quickly as possible. However, they didn't notice an attack coming toward Glory, who was struck and slammed hard into the cave wall. Soon after, they were frightened when the leader of the Plague Clan, the Bloody Axe, appeared before them. Bai Qi still remembers that last time. As soon as he cut the ropes that held them, it automatically triggered the boss battle of the cave. He imagines that this battle will be very difficult and that everyone will need to give their best. But if he tries to fight without any skills or attributes, he will end up dead. Thinking about this, he concludes that he should leave the cave alone to receive his reward and perhaps return later to save them. Since, being important NPCs for the story, their lives are not his priority at that moment. So, after recalling how the events would unfold if he cut the rope and helped them, the Prota turns around, deciding not to help them. Glory, furious, asks the Prota where he is going and if he's crazy to leave them there to die. Hoshi, however, comments that he had already said before not to waste time on the Prota, as he was just a cowardly, classless boy, and he'd bet a lot of money that the Proto wouldn't survive a minute alone there. Bai Chi hears the insults but pays no attention and responds that he wouldn't waste time explaining things to them, because even if he told them, they wouldn't believe him. He imagines that the time is almost right. As he walks, the Prota comes across a level 5 Plague Clan hatchling and prepares himself. The monster notices the Prota and lets out a roar, while the princess's group starts laughing, saying that even though it's just a level 5 hatchling, it would be enough to defeat the Prota, who is level 1, and to make matters worse, is classless. The monster quickly charges at the Prota, who stays on guard, thinking that even though he didn't choose to save that bunch of idiots, he would still get out of there alive, even though it's difficult to defeat a level 5 monster with his current level. The monster attacks the Prota, who dodges by rolling backward, then dodges again by rolling to the side without losing any health points, leaving the monster confused, as it couldn't hit him at all. Hoshi, surprised, asks how the Prote managed to dodge 2 consecutive attacks, wondering if perhaps he was lucky. Glory responds that it wasn't luck, explaining that even though the dodges weren't perfect, he performed them at the exact moment. The Prota gets excited, realizing that apparently there was no delay between his mind and his movements, and even though he didn't have additional attributes or skills, he still had all the experience he'd accumulated from playing the game for so long. At that moment, the Plague Clan hatchling throws a bomb at the Prota, which explodes immediately. However, the Prota emerges from the explosion's smoke, charging at the monster, which was confused, never imagining the Prota would emerge from the explosion, hitting the monster's head right after. After battling for a while, Bai Chi gets irritated and says he's going to finish it. He says this as the monster roars, charging at him. However, the Prota lands a blow on the monster's head, and due to the force, its head spins uncontrollably, finishing it off. Glory can't believe that the Prota managed to defeat the level 5 Plague Clan hatchling without a scratch on his body, and to top it off, with only a basic staff. Hoshi admits that he underestimated him, but seeing how much he struggled to defeat just one level 5 monster, he comments that it will be impossible for him to get out of there alive. Bai Chi sits on top of the monster to rest, thinking that even though he can dodge due to his combat experience, he won't be able to overcome the attack power difference anytime soon, as his attributes are very low and his weapons are even weaker. He knows that this won't be relevant, as he chose to play as no class, and will need to play in an unconventional way, avoiding all fights that aren't absolutely necessary. The system notifies him that he has defeated the level 5 Plague Clan hatchling and received 100 soul points, 2 gold coins, and the item Broken Mace, along with an additional 5 attack points. Bai Chi quickly opens a status window, knowing it would look terrible, as he still needs 900 more soul points to level up. His main goal is to escape the ululating cave as quickly and safely as possible. He picks up his broken mace from the ground and gets up, while the princess's group desperately asks the Prote to save them, promising to give him whatever he wants. At that moment, Princess Mina wakes up, asking Glory to stop begging, as the Prota can't even deal with his own problems. Mina makes it clear to the Prota that even if his choice is not to save them, she respects his decision. However, she advises him that in life or death situations, he should always be very careful. Bai Chi imagines that even in the face of death, she remains calm and elegant, truly worthy of being the princess of the Star Kingdom. He continues walking through the cave, saying that he had his own plan from the start, but didn't want to mention it, because they wouldn't believe him if he said he would come back to save them. Hoshi, furious, asks the Prota if he's trying to mock them. Mina asks her guard to stop, saying that if he has the energy to yell, he should use it to think of a way to get them out of there. The Prota imagines that in the original story, even if he didn't save them, they would still find a way out, but that would make him lose many rewards and achievements related to Princess Mina, and that saving them or not will all depend on how he manages to reach the exit safely and what rewards he will receive. He knows that making allies is extremely important, but his survival is his priority. After all, the ululating cave contains many valuable secrets. He's passed through it so many times that he knows each one like the back of his hand. Therefore, if he wants to encounter as few enemies as possible, he'll have to take a certain path where the Prota will need to meet a specific character. After walking a bit through the cave, Baichi reaches a certain spot, approaches a large jar, and hears someone asking from inside the jar who's there, since they don't smell like a Plague Clan hatchling, asking the Prota not to be afraid and to come closer, as they would explain why they were trapped inside the jar. Then, they explain that they came to the cave in search of treasure and hid in the jar to escape the monsters, but ended up stuck there and never managed to get out, begging the Prote to please free them. Without thinking twice, the Prota breaks the jar, freeing them. This person is Lucci, who is at level 27. He's surprised, as the Prota really saved him, saying that he owes him one, and that if he ever needs something, he just has to ask. And if it's within his reach, he'll gladly help. That's all, folks. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks.